A lot of times, the bias that we see with this condition is because people assume that there's no quality of life. And it's just really not the case. All the children that I've met with trisomy 13 and 18, they've all been super happy, and their parents are happy, and their siblings love them, and they're happy. And so
Ugh.
I think that a quality of life is more of a it's more of an opinion than it is a fact in a lot of ways. She brings so much happiness to our family.
I saw it at the hand washing station at the entrance of the NICU. I see it in the playroom during medical play bingo. I see it near the fish tank in the surgery waiting room. There is a powerful unspoken language between two parents who have never met, but know in their deepest soul what the inside of a children's hospital feels like. It is joy and it is grief. It is love and it is fear. It is miracles and it is loss. This podcast exists to tell these stories. I'm Katie Taylor, a very proud child life specialist, and it is my honor to be your host of Inside the Children's Hospital. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Inside the Children's Hospital. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Katie, a certified child life specialist, and if you haven't been here before, this show is all about helping families feel less alone and more prepared. Today, I'm talking with Nicole, Charlotte's mom. Charlotte has trisomy 13, and Nicole shares what it was like to receive that diagnosis and the uncertainty that comes with it, what it was like to advocate and continue to advocate when the care her daughter gets or needed wasn't always offered clearly or compassionately. In this conversation, we talk about medical bias and the importance of shared decision-making, the role of family support, and just the joy that Charlotte brings to everyone around her. She also reminds us that quality of life cannot be measured by what only happens inside hospital walls. This episode is honest, emotional, and full of hope, but not the kind of hope that ignores the hard things, the kind of hope that helps families keep asking questions, keep looking for the right team, and keep seeing their child as a whole person. Let's get into it.
My name is Nicole Whitaker. I am a mother of 5, and I also have a grandchild. My husband and I have been together for a very long time. Our eldest son is 22 years old, so uh, we have a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then Charlotte, who will be 2 in May. So
You've got every stage of development in your
we
home.
we do. We really do. Before we both were working full time. Um, for a while, when the other kids were younger, I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I just kind of bounced from job to job for a while, in between children. And I work as an auditor for a health insurance company now.
Ooh.
So when we had the surprise of Charlotte's pregnancy, it was like a really big decision between the two of us, on who was going to stay at home and who was going to continue working, because she is 24-hour care. And here in Indiana, where we live, there is a nursing shortage. I know there's a nursing shortage everywhere, but it's really bad here in Indiana, especially for her level of care. So my husband stopped working, and I work full time, and he's her full time caregiver at home. And then we have 2 children who are still school age, and they are homeschooled because it just makes it easier to have everybody in the house. And our oldest children actually live with us as well now, again, along with our grandchild. So we have 10 people in our house because my mother-in-law lives with us as well. So it's a really busy household, but it's it's really fulfilling to have everybody there. Like, it's a little crowded, but it's a good dynamic. So
I feel like I wish the listeners could see like the smile on your face when I'm just like seeing you talk about everybody in your home because I have a feeling it's like that controlled chaos.
Oh, yeah.
And like I always think back to like maybe not so controlled, but like like that's how we're supposed to live is with multiple people and generations and community close by. And we're not supposed to live in these like little siloed houses next to each other. And like so it's pretty cool you get to have family close by. Can you walk us back? You mentioned when you found out you were pregnant. What was going on then and what did you guys learn about your pregnancy?
So when we found out that we were pregnant with Charlotte, I was actually almost 5 months along, which was crazy because I've had four other kids before her. So what had happened is I was on birth control at the time, and she was conceived after I had COVID. The doctors think that while I had COVID, that it had actually like rendered my birth control ineffective because of how sick I was. Yeah.
Wow.
So I just thought that I was just nauseous and um, having those issues because it was like long COVID. You know, I just figured it was something to do with
Mm,
that. And I was working full time. I was still training at that time at the job that I'm at now. And we were in a training session, and all of a sudden I just felt a jolt, like there was a kick, and I was like, Really?" I was like, "I know that feeling." And so it was a major surprise. Our youngest at the time was Christian. He's 9 now. We had no plans of having any more children. Like we were done. Um, and I came home. I said, "I think we need to get a pregnancy test." He's like, "Okay." So we did, and it came out positive. And I was really worried at first. Just because like we weren't expecting to be expecting again. Like we didn't have
right.
anything in the house. We didn't have any baby clothes, anything left over. And we were both working full time, and just wow. Uh I went to see the OB, and they went ahead and did a scan after the initial like did the official pregnancy test in the office. They
Yep.
went ahead and did an anatomy scan at the next visit that they saw me, and there was some soft markers. They weren't really sure what it was showing at first, because of her positioning. They thought that maybe she had spina bifida because they were seeing like lemon spine. Um, but they weren't 100% on that either because of the way she was positioned. So I was referred to a different center, like a maternal fetal medicine, um, that had better equipment, and they did another, and they said that they saw those signs as well, and they wanted me to do a nip test. So I had the nip test done, and at about 25 weeks ish, um, I had gotten the results back, and it said that we were at high risk for trisomy 13, uh, which anybody who knows anything about the nip test, it's not 100% accurate. There's all kinds of things like that. They tell you don't make any major decisions off of those. Um, but we had that, and there was a lot of that was very stressful situation in itself. Um, I think we were given that news over the phone.
Hmm.
Uh, Even just the initial, like, we're going to need you to go and see another physician. We were given that news over the phone. Um, I honestly, we didn't have any face to face consultation until afterwards. Um, but even like with the nip test results, I was at work when the genetic counselor called me, and she just went ahead and gave me the result like right off the bat when I answered the phone.
Almost like sharing like a recipe that you were
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
borrow. Like yeah.
Yeah. it was, um it was absolutely devastating is what it was because, I had never really thought about any of this kind of stuff. All my other pregnancies had been pretty typical. I think I had genetic testing done on the very first pregnancy I ever had, just because I was first time
Yeah.
mom and was freaking out about everything. But this this genetic test, I guess I was just expecting that everything would be more face to face and that there would be, I'm not really sure the right word, that they would take everybody's feelings into consideration and making sure that, like, the support was there, especially knowing
Right.
that they're gonna give the results that they were giving. So,
Yeah.
I was at work, I had to leave my desk, I went out into the hallway, and then my genetic counselor says, "She's positive for, trisomy 13," is what she said, and she then told me that's considered a lethal diagnosis. There's just not going to be a chance that she's gonna survive. It's probably best if you were to try to terminate the pregnancy, but you're kind of far along, so, um, there's not a lot of options, is what I was basically told by the genetic counselor. So,
Over the phone while you were
over
at
the
work.
phone, while I was at work with nobody around, I just started bawling. I went back into my office, and my boss and my coworkers, they immediately, like, they knew something was very, very wrong, and they all just came around
Yeah.
me, and thankfully, the coworkers that I have are amazing and very supportive.
Wow.
My boss, my supervisor, her name is Kathy, she actually she's like, "Listen, I think you need to go home and be with your family right now. Um, don't worry about everything here right now. Let's just take you home." And she knew I wasn't in any kind of position to drive or anything like that, so she actually drove me home, immediately
Wow.
afterwards because she just felt so bad that it had gone down that
Yeah.
way. But after that, going home, telling my husband what had happened, um, we kinda went down the rabbit hole is what happened. Like, we didn't bother waiting to find out, like, more information from them. We just went ahead and went down our own rabbit hole and started researching the condition.
Mm.
Um, and then finding out about the accuracy of the NIP test, we decided we definitely wanted to have an amniocentesis, to
Yeah.
confirm, because there's just all kinds of things that could happen. There's mosaicism and there's, all these different things, that could be a possibility. So we went home and researched everything as much as possible, went and had the amniocentesis. The amniocentesis came back. It was positive as well. And it came back that she had full trisomy 13, because they went ahead and did a microarray test as well. And what that means is that she has complete trisomy 13, so it affects all of her chromosomes and not just a partial or a mosaic. Um,
Nicole,
so
can you kind of describe at like a very level, eighth grade level, what trisomy 13 is and how it affects Charlotte's life?
trisomy 13 is a genetic condition, that affects the chromosomes during development in utero. Um, she has a third copy of her 13th chromosome. And so what that does is it can cause numerous types of birth defects. It can cause, developmental issues. It can cause intellectual, disabilities. Uh, it presents differently for every single person. Every child is different. It's one of those
Yeah.
diagnoses that are very spectrum. So you can have children who don't develop different organs and things at all, or partial. Or you can have a baby like how Charlotte is, and she developed pretty typical in a lot of ways. She had a few heart defects when she was born. None of them were anything major, thankfully. She had it's common to have like heart defects with this and brain, different defects in the brain and muscle issues and things like that. So, um, kind of think of trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, but the historical prognosis on it is not as positive, I guess.
Yeah, we've had the honor of talking with a couple other trisomy 13 families and myself working with some in the hospital. And it appears that it's one of those, like, once she's born, you pretty much turn into medical motherhood and fatherhood, like, right on. You become the main nurse, caregiver,
Yes.
and everything. You had to give birth, which is in its own kind of a traumatic, hard experience. You're just exhausted. Your body has been through so much over the past months. How did you handle the transition and what worked for you in terms of the learning curve of medical motherhood? And what are some things you wish you knew at that time?
I'm gonna start off with I wish that I knew some things ahead of time. First and foremost,
Okay.
I some of the jobs I've had in the past, I was a nursing assistant, I was a pharmacy tech, like I had been around doctors and
Yeah.
nurses. Um, so I always had like a really high respect and I didn't question things. Um, it just was, they're doctors, they know what they're talking about like 100% all the time. They know what's best. And I wish that I would have had a little bit I wish I would have been on guard a little bit more going in. I wish I would have challenged some of the doctors a little bit more than I did every once in a while. Thankfully, my husband was there, which he doesn't have that background. So he was like, no, you need to explain to me why, you know? But I wish that I had gone in with that attitude, with the advocacy type attitude ahead of time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that that would have been
Yeah, I think
better.
that's I feel like that way too, because it's also kind of culturally what we've all been taught is to don't question authority. And not even just with doctors, but with teachers, with pilots. Like, I can think of so many different scenarios where it's like, it's not your expertise. So you just listen and you sit there. And I think, especially as women, we kind of feel that way too. So and it's almost like a sad realization when you realize that it's not that safe to do that. It's like I'm kind of thinking like when you tell your child that Santa's not real, and it's like, "Oh, I was really hoping that they
Right.
would just have the answers and that they would be a different, level of human and not get anything wrong and know exactly what to do." And you're like, "Oh, that's not the case, and I have to shift gears."
Yes, absolutely. I wish I would have known about medical bias. I wish that I would have known about like moral distress and things like that when it comes to
Yeah.
medical professionals. Had I known that, I might have been paying a little bit more attention during pregnancy. I mean, I feel like I was already on high alert anyways because I was
Yeah.
starting that process. Um, what really helped transition into that role for me was the support that I had from outside of the care team at the hospital. Um,
Mm.
I was introduced to some of the support groups really early. As soon as I found
Yeah.
out, my cousin out in Texas, she was like, "Hey, I know this guy that's friends with my husband, and he has had trisomy 13 and 18 patients before, and he says that you should get in touch with this person and talk to this person." And so, like, just to give you more of an idea of what's going on, because it was very doom and gloom, from
Yeah.
the medical professionals that I had, the care team that I had at the time. And they weren't giving any, like, ribbon of hope of any sort. So, um, that's what we did. We went on to Facebook and joined a couple of the trisomy 13, 18, and rare trisomy support groups. And they we got in touch with Soft organization, um, which they're amazing. And then
Tell
we
me about
started.
soft.
So Soft is, oh my goodness. So they've been around for a little, they've been over 40 years they've been. But a lot of people don't know who they are. It's the support for trisomy families. Um,
Okay.
it's John Kerry is one of the main people that I think of when I think of Soft. He's he's retired now, but not really retired because he has so much involved with Soft. But they give a lot of information. There's a ton of information that they have available to people. Expectant parents, parents that have living children. They also do a lot of things for angel families and things like that. We just went to we went to the picnic and stuff for the conference this past year, and got to meet a bunch of people in person. There's a lot of these people you only ever see online, but uh,
Yeah.
but to get to actually meet them in person was really great. Um, but they're just there for you with resources, more than anything else. And they do a lot in the actual medical community to change the narrative. I mean, that's
Mm.
their theme basically, is changing the narrative. Um, they Dr. Pyle and some of her associates are the ones who put together the report and things for the AAP, that just came out this past July, with, like, talking about bringing on new standards of care for trisomy 13 and 18 patients. There's just a lot of stuff happening really fast now, that was very, very slow a few years ago, but
Yeah.
it's starting to pick up pace and changing that narrative and making it more available to parents, for sure, is what's really needed. Is parents are the ones, we know our kids best, so.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So we're going to have to look at the soft organization. One of the other questions I had for you, Nicole, are what are some of the more challenging parts of caring for a child with trisomy 13?
So Charlotte, as an individual, she is on a ventilator right now. She has a trach and a ventilator. She also has a G-tube. She ugh, she was in the NICU for almost 5 months. So that in itself was very challenging. Um, there was a lot of going back and forth for a while. We had to be out of state for a while, because we could
Wow.
transfer hospitals. Um, Nowadays,
I
like
feel like
now,
there's a story there.
there's definitely a story there. Her her birth hospital, there's definitely policies in place at that hospital that are not trisomy friendly. Um, there were
Okay.
people there that were, and then other people that weren't. And
Okay.
it definitely made navigating her birth and that first month that she was there, it made it extremely difficult. We didn't spend very much time away from that hospital, for that whole month. So, yeah, um, it was somebody who we had met through the groups. One of the doctors, he volunteers his time on the groups, and yeah, he's amazing.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. His name is Dr. McCaffrey. He's absolutely amazing. Um, he's neonatologist out of UNC, um, and he's a lifesaver. That's for sure.
Wow.
We reached out to him, let him know what was happening, um, and he was like, "That doesn't sound right. You should you should let me be her second opinion doctor. There's some forms you can sign." And so we did, and he was able to gain access to all of her records, and he said, "You guys need to be able to get out of there." Um, and he got in touch with one of his associates, in Michigan, Dr. Green, and Dr. Green told us, "Absolutely, there's definitely some things that can happen. Let's get her transferred up here." And so she was transferred to Ann Arbor, from
Wow.
Indiana. Yeah, and it saved her life. At her birth hospital, we had run into a lot of issues. They kept DNRing and DNIing her, without consent, um, which a lot of people don't realize is legal in most states. But, they they had found out that she had hypoglycemia, and so they were combating the hypoglycemia with some medication, and the medication causes you to retain fluid. And to combat that, they were gonna give her another medication, and there was a mistake made by endo, and they prescribed the wrong medication at the wrong dosage, and it ended up putting her into critical acidosis, and, she started having different failures of organs, and she became critically ill and had to be intubated, and well, and I should say again, because she had been intubated beforehand too. She was born with an omphalocele, which there was a person there that had repaired, on his own. But she had been intubated again after being overdosed with the mistaken medication. And there was some disagreements between doctors and things that were being kept from us and from some of the other doctors by some of the other teams. And she just kept getting sick, and she just kept retaining more and more fluid, and nobody could, like, everybody was saying, well, it's just because she's losing the will to live is what it is. This is just her trisomy finally showing itself, and there's just nothing anybody can do about it. And I'm sorry, but you're just gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to talk about hospice care, and start getting you guys thinking about end of life choices. And then became clear that there had been a mistake made, and um,
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot. It was-
I I can imagine. I like the stress that you and like just despair and grief and like mistrust that are just like all compounding on top of each other. And you mentioned you spent a lot of time at the first hospital. Did it take time at the next hospital to build trust back up? And when that finally happened, what was that like for you? Or did it happen? I'm
so it did. So my husband's name, I don't know if I was able to tell you, but my husband's name is Christopher, and he was really like, he put his foot down at the first hospital. I was a distraught mess. I hate to
yeah,
say it. I wish I was stronger than what I was, but I wasn't. I was a complete
of
mess.
course.
Um, and had he not been there, who knows what would have happened, because I just was on the verge of dissociating, honestly. Like, I just finally gotten
Yeah.
to the point where they just kept telling us more and more things were wrong with her, and showing us these different, like, scans of different things and all these different charts. And I just like, all the information overload that they were giving me was all things that I kept on saying, "Well, no, but this, like, we can do this though." And they're like, "No, we can't do that." Um, it's just Christopher put his foot down. he kinda had to face off with some of the doctors. Um, they definitely don't like us there very much at that hospital. Um, it took us getting transferred to Ann Arbor and being at a hospital in a different state to start trusting that there were doctors that had her best interest and wanted to have, like, a shared decision making type of
Okay.
care. That's what helped bring that trust around. I won't say that we're 100% trusting because I don't think that that will probably ever come back. Um,
Yeah.
we are at a different hospital here in Indiana now. Um, we found out that the original hospital had told us that they were the only ones here in the state that could handle her level of care, and it actually wasn't true. There's another hospital, which is only like a half hour away from that hospital, that can.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're at that hospital now. That's where they transferred her back after Ann Arbor, and she was in the NICU there from the end of July until October of 2024, and it was going there and being there, um, and I had to have some forced trust because I had to go back to work.
Right.
My
And
husband
you've got kids 4 hours away.
exactly. I I had to go back to work full time. My husband had the kids, and he could go up to the hospital and spend time with Charlotte more often than what I could. Um, but we were still there multiple times a week and uh, helping take care of her as much as possible because we wanted to be able to transition her into coming home. We had brought
Yeah.
our children up there to come and see her. Once we knew everything was gonna be stable, we started letting them come and see her and things. So,
What
on a
was
more
that experience like bringing, siblings into the NICU?
so it was it was hard at first, because you kinda wanna try to shield your kids from seeing some of the things that happen. Um, and I guess I was just always worried that, like, they're gonna go and they're gonna, like, try to look in some of the other rooms, or they're gonna, like, hear things, or they're going to be exposed to things that are gonna upset them a lot. Um, at the very beginning, I was still worried that something could happen to Charlotte, and I didn't want anything to happen while they were there. I didn't know
Yeah.
how well they'd be able to handle that. So that part of it was hard, but it was really great once we kinda got into a routine.
Mm.
And we had nurses that were, like, their primary nurses because she had been there for as long as she was, and they were able to give her more of a primary nurse. And so, having a familiar face to come to every time we came was nice, and the kids
Yeah.
getting to be there, and, child life specialists would come in and, give them coloring pages and things to decorate her room, and they would, do music therapy and things, and they would bring toys for the kids to play with and stuff while they were in there, so it it really wasn't as bad once we got to the hospital that she still goes through today.
I can feel that, like, when it's so critical at the beginning, it's difficult to even imagine bringing siblings in, and then once things stable out a little bit. And I always say too, I loved working in the NICU, and then siblings would come, and it's okay for siblings to play while they're there, bring a toy in, bring a book. It's okay for them to get in and then immediately want to leave. And like everything in between is a really normal reaction for that. One of my favorite strategies for that sibling bond between a NICU baby and then their sibling at home is having the siblings, like, pick out a book for mom or dad to bring when they visit and take a picture of, like, the baby with the book and that kind of stuff. Like, it just those little things that can make a big difference if you can't be there in real life. Um, Nicole, so Charlotte finally comes home, and you talked a little bit about nursing care because she needs 24/7 care. And you're a full-time working mom, and your husband also has the kids at home. What is your life like today? And for those moms and dads who are at the beginning of getting this trisomy 13 diagnosis, and let's say they've decided that they're going to find the right care team like you did and advocate and get what the care their child deserves. What can, and I know everything's different, but what does your life look like now that you want to share with them?
So, routine and having a more set routine, like having a set routine is definitely a plus when you have as much going on as what we do on a daily basis. Um, like I said, my husband is her primary caregiver. He's there with her all day, every day. Um, we do not have a nursing team right now at all. Like, there's no nurse that comes. We were basically told that if we wanted a nurse to come, that it would be like a PRN type of situation, and they just kinda come when they can. So, Christopher was just like, "I'll just take care of her. It's fine." And so, he went through all of the extensive trainings and stuff that they had at the hospital. I did too, but he definitely did more than what I did. On a regular basis, like, we get up in the morning, I go to work. He's at home. He gives her breathing treatments. He makes sure that her food is set. He plays with her. He does all of her physical therapy with her that he was taught how to do. They just hang out basically all day together. It it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. It's a lot. It's a
It's
lot of work.
so much.
It really is.
Yes,
And
it's
she's
so
on a
much.
fasting schedule now for her to get come off of her ventilator, and so she's up
Okay,
to 3 hours a day off the ventilator at a time, and she's doing really good with that, so, like, he's able to, like,
that's awesome.
walk around with her more and show her everything in the house and just play with her more. So and then, of course, I work from 8 to 5 every day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I come home and we get food and food going and everything, and then we clean up the house and we make sure everybody's good for the day and they go to bed.
What is it like when she came home from the NICU, and how has their sibling relationship grown or changed? Because there are a lot of kids in the home.
There are a lot of kids in the home. So her older siblings absolutely adore her. Um, my 13-year-old and 9-year-old, they help out as much as they possibly can. My 13-year-old is like a little mother hen to not only her, but also to my granddaughter, Clementine. So, and then Clementine is a year old now, and her and Charlotte are the same size. They wear the same size clothes. All of that. So when we go and do things, they interact a lot with each other. Um,
Aw.
yeah, it's really, really cute. I don't know if I sent you the one picture, but like Clementine was hugging Charlotte in her
That's so
swing.
cute.
So yeah, it
Did
just
the has the is the sibling relationship always positive, or and you don't have to talk about specific kids or anything, but do you see kind of the ebbs and flows of maybe the impact of having a sibling that needs care around the clock or anything like that that you pay special attention to?
our daily life has had to change so much that the kids, they were used to doing certain things or being able to go certain places and do things more often. One of the positive things with that is that they are extremely understanding, much more understanding than most adults give them credit for. And I know that that's different for each child, but we have 5 we have 5 kids, and the 4 older kids, they all seem to be really understanding. I feel like there may have been a little bit of resentment at first, before they really truly understood the situation, because they didn't get to meet her until she was a few months old. So,
Right.
it having to be at the hospital as much as we were and not getting to spend as much time with them as we usually did, or taking them places and doing things 'cause, Charlotte was born in May. And so we spent that entire summer in the hospital and in hospitals in different states, like, so,
Right.
they didn't get to go on their summer trips and things that they normally do. They didn't get to go and do things that were fun, to them as much. So, I do think that there was some resentment at first. I feel like once they truly understood the situation and they got to meet her and, uh, see everything that care involves with going around her, that resentment it just went away. Like, it may
Wow.
not work that way for everyone, but it definitely did for our kids. Like, any tiny bits of resentment that were there, they just faded away completely. And then once
Yeah.
she home, there's never a question. Everybody just does what we do. Like, we had to change our daily routine so drastically, but the way that it goes every day, it just seems like it's what we've always done now, even though it's only been since October of last year. So, but yeah,
Mm, yeah. It's kind of what you said at the beginning. It's that like it's love, it's family, it's joy. It's of course I'm taking care and helping and loving my sister. Why like there's no other option. And those are some of the data points that haven't been shared with clinicians and care teams. Just the doom and gloom of what doesn't work, not kind of what you were saying about this like actual family experience outside of the hospital.
I mean, that's real life. So, and that's what's most important is how life is being lived. Like, I get it that there's going to be some cases that are just absolutely, there's just no way that that would be
Yeah,
possible
they're gonna be
for them.
devastating.
It
Yeah.
would be devastating, but there's so many that aren't. And uh, I think, what was the statistics? Trisomy 13 and 18 are the most common after trisomy 21 for the genetic, like the trisomies. Um, but even then, trisomy 13, it's like one in every 10,000 to 25,000 live births is trisomy 13. So, uh, it's not overly common, and a lot of those numbers have to do with, like, mortality rate that is not necessarily from the condition itself, but from, the choice to terminate the pregnancy when they find out. Because most of the time it happens a lot earlier in the pregnancy than what it was for us.
I totally hear what you're saying. They're looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
They're
looking at
looking at
what
the
they
wrong.
know and need to see. But it's what's the narrative now with social media and podcast and parent advocacy groups and connection are like, let's listen to the families that actually have this in their life and that matters too. It has to be a part of the conversation and decisions. And we need doctors to know their side too. Like it's got to be that kind of what the Michigan hospital said to you is like shared decision making.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the most important thing is there needs to be that open and honest communication between medical professionals and parents and caregivers, period. It just that communication is what makes that shared decision making possible. Your doctor should never advise you about not looking for information if you want it. Which
Yeah.
for me, I was told not to. Like, I was told by my genetic counselor and things not to do any research, that it would be detrimental to to my like, my
Wow.
psyche, basically, like, it would be bad for you to go and do this because you don't wanna know. And I get that. It might work for some people, but I feel like the more information that you have, the better decisions you can make. I mean, it's like that with any other aspect in your life,
Right.
the more data that you have, the more of an informed decision you can make. So, you know,
Yeah.
uh, which again, my husband and I, we went down a rabbit hole. Like, we definitely got as much information as we could. So, my
Right.
husband was I was quizzing him on cardiac terms and things, you know? Sometimes we'd go back for another echo that we could be like, "Wait a second, you said that that was this, and I don't see that, so what are you talking about?" Which was
I
another whole
love it.
story, you know, like, she's supposedly gonna have a coarctation, and she didn't, so, you know, had we gone
Whoa.
with what the cardiologist said, like, we would've and there would have been no support whatsoever at the hospital for her, like, she would have been born and there would have been nothing, but, uh, and against that, you know, you can't see it, so don't tell us that it's there just because she has trisomy 13, and I think that's, like, the most important thing is that everybody needs to remember that just because your child has a specific diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna present in the way that they expect. It also doesn't mean that it's always it doesn't mean that you have to give up hope, is basically like, you don't have to give up hope just because you were told that your child has a very specific diagnosis. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Sometimes
feel
it's the only thing you can hold on to.
yeah, exactly, and, you know, there could be hope that's it you can give I don't wanna give anybody hope that isn't that shouldn't be given, you know? Like, I don't want you to hope that somebody's going to have the same exact outcome as Charlotte and they're presenting completely differently. Like, that's I don't want anybody to ever think that. Like, I don't that's one of the things too. It's a hard balance in those support groups even is because
Mm.
you know, you wanna tell other parents as much as you possibly can, and you want to share your story with them to give them that hope and to give them some sort of comfort, but you also don't want them to get their hopes up too high to the point where they're disappointed or devastated when their child doesn't work out just like yours did, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that might be why I have a heavier presence on social media than what my husband does because he's very
Yeah.
Charlotte focused and
Right.
he doesn't want he'll give he gets on there sometimes and he talks to people and he gives advice and things at times when he can, especially if he feels like it's warranted like, you know, like hey, you're in a
Yeah.
bad place, go somewhere else, please. But
Yeah.
uh But yeah, I feel like everybody should be given that choice though, that opportunity to have that. You know, like
Mm.
it's soft is definitely like anyone who gets a trisomy diagnosis, they need to get in contact with soft immediately. I That's one of the things I would say. Definitely get in touch with them and talk to somebody there. Even if it's on Facebook and you're just messaging back and forth on Messenger, just talk to somebody like through that
That's
organization
good advice.
support groups, yeah, absolutely.
You're starting to like hint a little bit at her personality. Tell me a little bit about her and what she's like and what you love about being her mom.
She is pure joy is what she is, like, she's really not ever fussy. If she is fussy, it's because there is something very wrong. Um,
Yeah.
Usually very sleepy because she'll go days without sleeping sometimes, but she thinks everything is funny, and she's a little comedian herself. Like, it's hard because she's not verbal right this second, what traditionally would be considered verbal. She does make noises, and now that she is sprinting, she's learning that she can make even more noises. Um, but like, when she is on her ventilator, you'll hear the alarms go off, and you'll go in there, and it's because she's holding it in her hand, and she's showing you that she has her ventilator tube and she's sitting there, like, eating the air out of her ventilator tube with her mouth instead, and you're like, "No, you shouldn't do that," and she starts laughing. She thinks it's hilarious.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
yeah. She thinks she's definitely mischievous, and she can be a little sassy sometimes, but she's just mostly funny. Like she just brings tons and tons of joy. She's like a sunflower is what she is. She's like a ray of
Uh,
sunshine.
We need that sunshine in this world so badly.
Exactly. And I think that's the reason
Um,
why I think it's so important to be able to talk to you and have this kind of information come out to people, but also helping with advocacy programs and things as well, because a lot of times the bias that we see with this condition is because people assume that there's no quality of life. And it's just really not the case. A lot of times, all the children that I've met with trisomy 13 and 18, they've all been super happy and their parents are happy and their siblings love them and they're happy. And so
ugh,
I think that a quality of life is more of a it's more of an opinion than it is a fact in a lot of ways. My quality of life might be different than what you think yours is, you know? So, like, for anybody to make decisions, like, especially life altering decisions on what they consider themselves as quality of life, it's just not really fair. So, I
no.
just, yeah, we love her so much, and she brings so much happiness to our family and to the community. Like, she has a huge following. So,
That was so beautifully said. And I want to reiterate what you said again, that it's an opinion or even an assumption
yes.
that quality life is poor for kids with trisomy 13. But when you really look into the homes and the families and the children, what you see is love and joy and happiness and family. And that doesn't mean that it's easy all the time,
Oh, no, absolutely.
but that it's worth the fight to advocate and get the care that you want to have for your child. And that there are doctors and care teams out there who lovingly want to compassionately support and care for your child too.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's extremely important. Um, I feel like so there was something that Dr. Pyle, who is part of the team that helped with the report that came for American Pediatrics, um, she had said her mentor had actually said, you know, good ethics begins with good data. And I feel like a lot of times what happened was that the books and the data that doctors and other medical professionals were given and they've been going off of for so long is saying that there's absolutely no way that they'll ever have a good quality of life. They're going to suffer. Um, there's just you're being selfish by doing to them instead of for them. And you know, that was the thought at one time, and the data just wasn't there to show uh the opposite of that, you know, like
Yeah.
doctors and nurses and anyone who works in the hospital with your child, you everyone sees they see what's happening when they're at the hospital. And usually when you're at the hospital, it's because you're sick or there's something very wrong. So they don't see what happens when you're at home and they don't see like the interaction between family members or
Right.
even just going like trick or treating. We just had Halloween, going trick or treating and having fun and having Christmas and like birthdays and things like that. They don't see the celebration and the happiness and things like that. They only see the negative parts of things. So their data says, you know, that it's not a good idea to take care of our children or to offer them interventions, honestly, is really what it is, more than anything else.
Yeah.
Uh, But when when you have a care team that has a little bit more of an open mind and can think of them as an individual instead of just another patient, like another number. Um, it's it gives more opportunity. I'm not really sure how to explain that whole thing. When the children are given the opportunity to strive, they do. If that it does that make sense? Like,
Well, it's kind of your exact NICU situation, right? When it's doom and gloom and this isn't going to work and everything's going wrong, that's what happens. But then when
that's
you have a care team that says, hey, let's collaborate, let's try, what do you think? Then you
ab
get the opposite.
yes. Well, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like, if you go into it thinking that it's gonna be bad, it's gonna be bad because it's just all that negative energy. It was one of the things, like, it was hard to, balance that in the beginning. Like, it was really hard to balance that in the beginning, and I'm glad that I had the community that I had, my husband and all the people that we met through the support groups. They definitely helped me through all that because postpartum is a very real thing, and
Yeah.
uh, when you have the what I'm guessing was definitely some postpartum depression, trying to peek its way out with everything else that we were going through at the time, it made challenges for me it was so hard. I had a really
Yeah.
hard time seeing the good things. Like, I was constantly waiting for that ball to drop. Like, I was so worried that it was gonna be the last time I was gonna get to see her every time I leave for work.
Yeah. And it's not always easy.
No,
Well,
not.
Nicole, where can people follow along with you and follow along with Charlotte and maybe see some of the awesome stuff that you share with the community?
So, Charlotte has her own Facebook page. She's she's Charlotte Adelia, uh, Itsy Bitsy Warrior Princess at Facebook, is hers,
I love
and
it.
yeah. She is our little warrior princess. She has been through so much, and she is definitely a princess. So, she's definitely especially her daddy's princess. She's got him wrapped around
Mm,
her finger.
I love
But,
it, as she should.
as he should, yes. That is his best friend. So, but yeah, we also have an Instagram and things like that, but those are more mine, than they are hers. So, but yeah, Charlotte has her own Facebook page. Um, I definitely hope that some of the resources and things that we have had access to, I hope that we can share those in some sort of way, for other families. Um, things just wouldn't have been possible without them for us.
Yeah,
And um, I want to make sure that they kind of get the credit that they deserve, and also just so people know that they're there. Because a lot of people don't realize that there's anybody there that can help. So
right. Well, we'll make sure we share those and part of you speaking today, like making time in the middle of your workday to have this happen is only going to help spread more awareness and hope to families. So thank you so much for being with me today.
absolutely, thank you so much. And maybe next time we can be able to get my husband on here to talk to you too. That way, you guys can actually get to see Charlotte.
Let's do it.
Yes,
I would love that. Let's
I
do
think
it.
you would like that too.
Awesome.
Get a perspective from the actual caregiver from a day to day.
Yeah, and both roles are so important and absolutely necessary for the family to move forward. So, y'all are a pretty amazing family.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I
Yes.
appreciate your time.
Thank you. For those of you who are joining us today, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am a child life specialist. And the suggestions and tips and resources that I talk about with parents on this podcast may be great for you and they may not be right for you. So, the most important person you can talk to about getting support is your care team, your doctor who knows your story and your child's story. So, regardless of maybe what I mention or what other families mention here, we're not licensed therapists, we're not doctors. We're having a conversation about what the parenting journey has been like. So, please keep that in mind as you listen today.